Between the hills, the stars, the sky, the river so clear, river so clear.
Let us join in a spirit of meditation, reflection, or prayer as we deepen into our service and share our opening words for this morning. An excerpt from the book, How to Know a Person, The Art of Seeing Others Deeply and Being Deeply Seen by journalist David Brooks. Being open-hearted is a prerequisite for being a full, kind, and wise human being, but it is not enough. People need social skills. We talk about the importance of relationships, community, friendship, social connection, but these words are too abstract. The real act of, say, building a friendship or creating a community involves performing a series of small, concrete social actions well. Disagreeing without poisoning the relationship, revealing vulnerability at the appropriate pace, being a good listener, knowing how to end a conversation gracefully, knowing how to ask for and offer forgiveness, knowing how to let someone down without breaking their heart, knowing how to sit with someone who's suffering, knowing how to host a gathering where everyone feels embraced, knowing how to see things from another's point of view. We join Unitarian Universalists all over the world in lighting our chalice. Would Mary please come up and light the chalice, which is a symbol of the spark of life in each of us. And if you are on Zoom and have a chalice with you, I invite you to turn on your video to share while we light them. We're in good company. Our chalice lighting words are from Audette Fulbright Folson. We inherit this free faith from the brave and gentle. This light we kindle is set in the lamp of our history. We inherit this free faith from the brave and gentle, fierce and outspoken hearts and minds that have come before us. Let us be worthy inheritors of this faith, and through our good works, pass it boldly to a new generation. Our program today relates to information, fact-checking, and ensuring that the information that you are reading and reviewing is accurate, and how to go about doing that. In the unfortunate state that we are in, that we need to use the term fact-based journalism, which is not new. That's been going on for the last several years. So we're going, and before I start, I just want to share with you from my Buddhist practice, there's something referred to as the 5 remembrances. And I'd just like to pause for a second and reflect on 2 of those, which is that everything is of the nature to change and our actions are our only belongings. And I will keep that in mind this morning as we start this impromptu program. And then just real quick, I just want to point out, because I think it's important, like when we have such a variety of programs every week, that we connect it back to our principles so that it relates to our congregation and being Unitarian Universalists. And for this particular subject matter, I would say that it relates to both interdependence, because it's all about how we are relating to each other as humans. And then I think it also falls under justice, because there's a lot of things that come out of this that are justice related.
All over America and across North Dakota, a crisis is brewing.
We know newsrooms are shrinking. We know that reporters have multiple deadlines and more responsibilities than ever before.
The traditional media became less and less able to provide journalism because their revenues weren't sufficient to do that.
According to the Associated Press, every week 2 local newsrooms disappear, and those newsrooms that survive shrink.
Just yesterday, I was over at the Capitol. I mean, there's so many bills and things like that being proposed. But I think there were only 3 journalists in the media room at the time.
We have 1 reporter in Crosby. We have 1 reporter in Tioga. In our town, when there is something that needs delving into, there needs to be an investigative piece done on something, we don't have enough bodies to do in-depth reporting.
As a result, news deserts are growing. 70 million Americans live in a county with one newsroom or none at all. And as newsrooms shrink, our communities change.
Well, we all have a county government, we all have a city government, we nearly all have a school board. We have all these layers of local government that are supposed to be working for the people. And if there is no public watchdog over these entities, study after study has shown that you begin to see corruption, you begin to see a lack of engagement in the community, you see fewer candidates.
And misinformation spreads. A 2019 poll of 25,000 people found 86% of those who believed they'd been exposed to deliberately misleading content fell for it.
The age we live in right now, it's so easy for people to share on social media. No matter what the social media platform is, they read something they like and they click, oh, okay, click share. I'm going to send this to everybody else. Unfortunately, they don't always check to see whether it's accurate or true. I mean, we know that other countries have attempted to provide information to us when we're making decisions about things like who we're going to elect for office.
As an educator, again, I keep coming back to pushing students, pushing young people. Check, check. How do you know they're telling the truth? There has to be that verification process.
The need for reliable, relevant, real news is greater than ever. Enter the North Dakota News Cooperative, a new nonprofit organization with a twofold mission.
The first mission, and the one we are actively engaged in already, is to provide journalism in North Dakota, about North Dakota, to North Dakotans.
We want to try to find stories that have an interest to all North Dakotans. I mean, it's not usually a specific happening in one area or another. It's something that's affecting everyone.
The name cooperative is very apt because, hopefully over time, it will be a cooperation in that if I'm a small town newspaper publisher and I have kind of a big nut of a story to crack, and I don't have the resources to crack it, and I also know that it may apply to a lot of other small towns, I'm going to call Michael and say, I got a story for you.
I like context in my stories. I like multiple sources. I like to know that my stories are vetted. I like to know that they're edited. And as the North Dakota News Cooperative, those are things that we all agree upon and hold as foundational.
The North Dakota News Cooperative to me is just, it's timely. It's really important right now, particularly as an educator, but just as a citizen. Who do we trust?
And as the North Dakota News Cooperative injects our communities with local journalism, our second mission is underway: to advance news literacy across the state.
Commentary is good. Opinion is good, and it's important, but it's not fact. And fact can't be changed, no matter what your opinion is. So knowing the difference between fact and opinion is pretty important.
That differentiation about opinions versus storytelling, factual storytelling, history, and all of that, they're all interrelated, but they have to be rooted in a foundation of an educational process. Oh, I know this to be true because da, 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 da. Whatever that is.
The work of the North Dakota News Cooperative has begun, and with private and public support, we'll build a stronger North Dakota with vital communities, informed citizens, and stories that matter.
I mean, everybody in the news business, or I guess in the newspaper business anyway, is saying that we have to foster the idea or the notion that good news is worth paying for. But that goes hand in hand with teaching people the difference between good news and not so good news.
Maybe it says I grow older, but these are things that I see as extremely important, and I want my kids and grandkids to be able to trust news.
There are so many wonderful stories in North Dakota to help uncover those things, and talking about ourselves and who we are and the positiveness of being North Dakotans together and cooperatively, and I see that as a core part of what the cooperative is doing and is going to continue to do.
The North Dakota News Cooperative. Reliable, relevant, real. To learn more and donate, visit newscoopnd.org.
What I'm going to do is read a couple articles relating to this topic, just to kind of delve a little bit deeper into this. And then I'm hoping after we read this, we'll just have time for open discussion about what all of you think about this and your own information-seeking behaviors. And this happens to fall right under what I do for a living, so the timing is perfect, honestly. So, okay, so what is fact-checking and why is it important? The Oxford Dictionary describes fact-checking as a process seeking to investigate in order to verify the facts. However, while instructive, this necessarily concise definition is limited in its understanding of the practical outworkings of what constitutes fact-checking. The variation in scope of its practices, as well as the factors of social, political, and cultural contexts in which fact-checking has become an established practice. It is important to move beyond recent narratives of facts and fake news in immediate political and social moments to emphasize fact-checking position in a wider consideration of human nature, interaction, and our interrelatedness. Simply put, fact-checking is a form of critical investigative inquiry. It includes a wide range of approaches and practices. The spread of misinformation is inherently human. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman, who won the Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences, introduced the concept of what you see is all there is, meaning that we tend not to look for what we don't see. We rather rely on information that is directly available to us without being fully aware of what we do not know. If we just see some elements of a story, we construct the best story we can out of those partial elements. Part of the approach of fact-checking is the awareness of the cognitive biases innate to each of us. While these biases help us navigate everyday life, they can cause us to overlook relevant facts, even when they are clearly presented. The use of facts and storytelling as a tool of political mobilization has been a long-established means to persuade the public of a group consensus. The role of a journalist is to provide daily information, to provide accurate testimony of the political realm. But reality is more than this information. It includes the availability of information from a variety of sources. We weave these stories into a comprehensive meaning for ourselves. The network effect of social media has broadened the sources of information and thus the constructions of our own narratives. Social media has also removed a primary filter of journalists as the establishment of truth teller. Some politicians and opinion makers have seized upon this opportunity as an exercise of power. And now, of course, we have also added to that is artificial intelligence, which we can talk about as well, which is a whole other area relating to information. As it ever was, fact-checking is no guarantee against a group of people deciding to ignore the evidence of factual truths. But without the effort of fact-checking, we surrender each of our reality to others. Fact-checking emphasizes that we should remain skeptical for our own survival. Okay, now I'm going to read to you, this is an article from the Huffington Post, which I think is one of the more well-known articles relating to how to fact check. And it's titled "The Challenge and Dilemma, Fact Checking in Journalism and Research." A well-written and thought-provoking article can be totally discredited by neglectful fact checking. When a reader comes across an article on a subject matter that they're interested in, that reader expects to receive accurate information. As a journalist, it is important to ensure that the article that is produced is as accurate as it can be. Fact-checking is the best way to be confident in the information contained in the article. Fact-checking seems to be intimidating at first. The internet is a great resource. However, it's full of information that may or may not be actually accurate. It is probably useful, before committing ourselves to information that we have found strictly through internet research or word of mouth, make a nuanced job of fact-checking. To do this, we can begin by, and then they provide a list of ways you can do this. Reading the material. The material may be a mixture of opinion and fact, which we heard about in the video. Determine what facts are included. These will be the focus of our fact-checking journey. It's a good idea to read through material a few times and even to have a friend or colleague read it over as well in case something has been overlooked. Once we are armed with the facts, we are ready to investigate the validity of these facts. If these facts are about a certain topic, there are a few ways to look deeper into the accuracy. First, how did we obtain our fact? Was it a reliable source? If the source is valid, then we can cite the source. Next, we should also go beyond the source. Where did the source get the information from? It can be a bit like a treasure hunt or detective work as we look for the original author of the fact. Is the original author a reliable source? Once we've done this with each of the facts, it's time to expand on the information. We can do this by research experts on the subject of the article. Getting various opinions from experts on the validity of our facts will not only authenticate them, but it'll give the article a more well-rounded view. Some topics may be harder to fact check than others. If there's a piece of information that's difficult to track down the source of, there are a few resources available. Some libraries can do research. We can help you with that. The librarians will research the topic and provide any information that is found. There are also resources such as PolitiFact and FactCheck that provide fact-checking services. I've also used Snopes before. I don't know if any of you have used that. I think we need to keep track of our facts and our sources. Although not all articles will need this information, it's a good thing to keep track of our research. If in the future there's an opportunity to expand an article, the resources will be already available to do so. It seems that there are many ways to accomplish fact-checking. It's the duty of any journalist to provide clear and accurate information to readers. If we choose to delegate the job, you run the risk of publishing information that is inaccurate with your name attached to it. With consistent fact-checking, we will hopefully build a good reputation in the view of publications and readers alike. And as readers, also fact-checking on our own to make sure that the information is correct, especially before we decide to pass it on to others and on social media, which becomes an issue with inaccurate information. So that is in a nutshell, how to look into information that you're reading in articles, whether it's online or in print. A few ways to do that, a few resources to check the facts. And then I'll also just mention the inclusion of AI. I don't know if you've seen articles and news reports about this, but there are ways that messages can come out that appear to be from a particular person. It looks just like a video. It looks just like them. The voice sounds just like them, but it is not them. It is artificially generated. And it appears that they're telling people to do certain things or that they believe certain things, and it's not accurate. Because that's such a new technology, there's still information coming out about how to fact check things like that. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there. So with that, we're going to open it up to discussion. If any of you have comments or opinions on our state of journalism and the importance of fact checking and providing fact-based information to begin with.
Situation that we're in, that many people on both sides of the political spectrum are denying the facts, of many issues. Facts can now be bent, facts can now be changed. We're seeing it with history, we're seeing it with all kinds of different things.
How are you handling that yourselves? Like you see misrepresentation of facts being shared, oftentimes by a leader or head, and people who want to agree with them don't question what they're saying, and then they continue to spread that, and that's kind of how that misinformation gets out there. At one time, I tried to refute every non-fact that was out there that I saw on social media, but I decided that was just that's not in my best interest anymore. So I don't know, how do all of you deal with that?
I mean, I remember in the 80s, the book 1984, where they started changing the words. So it used to be a truth or a lie. And now we've got misinformation and disinformation and gaslighting and all these euphemisms, these softened ways of saying lies. And I'm just wondering, like, how slowly did this happen that I didn't notice it? Because when I was in high school reading that book, I thought, that's not gonna, what? And now it's like, I don't even hear anybody say the word lie anymore. It's all just euphemisms for lie. Yeah, or fake news. Or, you know what I mean? And then I was teaching English for years, and one of the rules was you have to have 3 sources when you're doing your research paper. Don't even use an article that doesn't have 3 sources. And all of a sudden the sources became an unidentified source. And I was like, you guys can't use this. And it got to the point where the kids couldn't even do a research paper because the newspaper wasn't doing a research paper.
Christine, I was wondering how this relates to your job and dealing with book banning, because you're a librarian. Does this trail over into people just not understand, because you've managed this whole thing for the state, or for Bismarck, I'm not sure. It seems like there's just a huge amount of misinformation that goes into how to choose a book to be banned by somebody, and how you've had to refute that, or have you had an occasion to be able to refute the book banners for whatever?
Right. So the first important step, I think, for any public library is having a well-written collection development policy, which lays out all of the criteria for selecting material for the collection, who selects it, their areas of expertise, and then also a mechanism for citizens to complain if they disagree with material that is in the collection, a mechanism to be able to do that. And that was actually what was in the law that ultimately passed through our last legislative session, and something that I think almost all of the libraries in our state were doing already. We did tweak our policy now so that if there are steps involved, so if someone, this might be more information than you're asking, but I think it's important. So if somebody would, if they want to put in a formal complaint, we have a form that can be filled out in writing or online. And then I receive it, and then I share it with our review committee, which is made up of all of our professional staff. Everyone has a minimum of a bachelor's degree. Most of us have 1 or more master's degrees. One of our staff has a PhD, and collectively we have multiple decades of experience. I'm just throwing that out there to, I guess, to show that we're professionals and we have a level of knowledge on the subject. So when that's received, the review committee takes very seriously any complaint we get, and we look at it in a very neutral, fact-based state of mind. And we refer to our collection development policy and whether that particular title meets that criteria. If it doesn't, if we did something incorrectly, like one time there was an audiobook that had a very kid-like cover on it, and it was cataloged for the children's library, and a mom checked it out and they listened to it with her kid. She's like, this was a great story, but it's really not appropriate for kids. And we looked into it, and it was actually an adult murder mystery, but it had a very kid-like cover. That was an error on our part. So we moved it into the adult collection because that, according to our collection development policy, that's where it belongs. We recently received a complaint regarding a book about restorative justice written for kids, which mainly highlights people of color and ways to bring the community together to help it falls under interdependence and interbeing, where we help each other as we go along in life, so that maybe we don't get into legal trouble or things happen because we're supporting each other from an early age into adulthood. And the person took issue with the fact that there was one sentence that referred to, like, if we could do all of these wonderful things, we wouldn't need a police department. And it wasn't like bashing the police. It was just saying if we could help each other, maybe mass incarceration wouldn't be a thing in our country, but written from a kid level. That certainly falls within our collection development policy, and it meets certain information needs that we don't have represented in other areas. So we very respectfully and professionally, the review committee responded to that person, laid out all of the reasons that we would be keeping it, based on facts and professional reviews and such. And then every member of the committee signs it, and then we send it. So it's a very formal process that we take seriously. We don't go into it assuming, we don't ban books, anti-censorship. We go into it thinking this is a citizen with a valid concern, and we use facts and reasoning versus opinion and emotions. And that's, I think, part of what you are referring to. That's often missing when we're talking about information and whether we agree with it or not, is that we're humans. So of course we all have opinions and we get emotional over things, especially when group dynamics, I think, play a role in that. But we try to focus on facts. No, sorry, we focus on facts. We don't try, we do.
Wouldn't the term book banning in the first place, isn't that kind of misleading inherently? I guess it depends obviously in the context. When I think of a book being banned, that means nobody can read this book. But kind of the context of what we're having now is drawing that line between what's available to children and what's available to adults. You yourself just said there are certain cases that occurs. And it seems to me more that that's where the crux of the debate is today, not necessarily book banning, but what is available to children and what is not.
And our overall not just in our library, but I would say public libraries as a whole, our overall, just within the profession, stance is that we provide a variety of material on a variety of subjects to meet the needs of everyone in our community, based on our policy and community needs. And If it happens to be something that is for minors, it is truly up to the parents to monitor what their children are reading. We're not babysitters and we're not a daycare. So if a child is old enough to come in with their card on their own and they check something out, I'm not responsible for that. It's up to the parent.
So back when there was only so many publishers and they, their homework and fact checked books before they were published. And we know now that anybody can publish just about anything. That's had to have, quadrupled your workload. And my question then is, if it's this much work just to fact check a book, which is published once and remain the same, what do you do with magazines as they cut back staff? I mean, you can't listen to I remember this is a couple of years ago, on the day that I saw a headline saying, like, I don't know if it was the New York Times or Wall Street Journal, one of the big name places said that they'd cut a whole bunch of reporters. And then when I watched the news that night, they were quoting, well, according to the Wall Street Journal or whatever it was. And I'm thinking, all the TV news are quoting the magazines and newspapers, but the magazines and newspapers are cutting their staff. So how do you guys keep track of magazines that are pumping out information? What happens if something's disproven? Like, we thought this cancer research was accurate and 5 years later it's wrong. You pull that book, right? Mm-hmm. But what about magazines? How much work is this for you now?
That's a little different because a magazine is made up of several different writers, reporters. It's kind of a mixed bag. We do try to have across the board a spectrum of news sources. That's where it comes in to play, the fact checking yourself for what you think is. We try to provide quality sources, but that doesn't mean that there could be an article within that ends up not being accurate. As an example of something where we would clean up it's part of our collection development policy that we remove information that's no longer accurate. So for instance, Pluto's no longer a planet. So we try to remove all of the sources in our collection where it says that Pluto's a planet. Relating to publishers and the publishing process, I'm going to be completely honest. This is a personal opinion. I'm not a fan of self-published books. Anybody can publish anything and it becomes something that you can add to the collection. But I also recognize that things go through our reputable publishers, and there are things that I don't think are accurate either. So, but like if we would get requests from citizens to add books that state that that Earth is flat, we're not adding that to our collection. If there are books about people walking with dinosaurs, I think there was one situation where they just really wanted this book in the collection, and I believe in that, for that specific item, we added it to the collection, but it's in fiction.
I think it's important to really look deeply at the idea of fact. What is a fact? And I mean, a fact cuts to it's a very core epistemological, ontological thing about the nature of reality, about a common public world that all minds inhabit, that that all minds, they can agree upon this is a true thing of reality, and at a certain basic level you can do that. Well, you have to, because in order to navigate through the world, in order to get to work, you have to share this common reality with other people who work at the same place that you do. And so so there is that basic functional level of factual reality that we all inhabit, and when you get further removed from the basic core functional part of reality, then that's where disagreement about what is true and what is not true really starts to arise. And that's where like reality itself becomes like a partisan issue. What is true and what isn't true becomes like an issue that we cannot agree on because of our political biases and stuff like that. And you can do fact checking. You can fact check, you know, till the cows come home. But if someone disagrees with what is real and what is not real, then the fact checking doesn't really matter too much. And anyway, yeah, but what is a fact? What is our common reality that all minds inhabit, that we all have to exist within?
We will extinguish the chalice with these closing words by North Dakota journalist Chuck Haga. This is an excerpt from, I hate to say this now after our discussion, this is an excerpt from his opinion piece. It's an opinion, not fact. It's his personal thoughts. Peace for Our Bruised and Precious World, which was published in the Grand Forks Herald. And although it was written in December of last year, and we might have spring on the brain, I feel the message is heartfelt and filled with loving kindness, so I want to share it with you. And he wrote this when he was out at his cabin this past winter. On this night, the bedroom window framed a curve of 3 bold stars. I leaned in to see more of the mountain sky. Where it hung the entirety of the Big Dipper. I couldn't see Polaris through the limited frame of my window, but I traced my way north in my mind, where it keeps vigil over the corner of the cabin. The stars may be indifferent to we humans messing up below, but to me, they shine more wondrous with time. Maybe decades under the faux halo of city lights make them seem brighter. Maybe I've let myself get too distracted for too long by the necessary demands of working life. Now, whenever I can, not often enough, I retreat to the cabin to seek other necessities. The skitterings of the squirrel as he checks his caches, the intelligent sway of the tall pines against storm winds, the hide and peak of the moon as it waxes and wanes through the season. Given the trouble of our times, I can feel guilty about the fortunes of my life and the privilege of simply looking out my window. But the bigger shame would be to not stop as time contracts, not to look up and let myself be dizzied by the beauty. On as many stars as there are on a winter night at the cabin, I wish peace for our bruised and precious world and for you.